What is this, episode 7?
Yeah, it's your podcast, dude.
Okay, all right. All right. Welcome, everybody, to what I think is the 7th episode of the PBMED podcast. I really don't remember, and my phone is tied to the pole back there recording. I'm Dustin. We're trying something new today. I've got my friend Brent in here. So Brent is the first live human aside from family. I think Steven came in once into the office, but you're the first person in the PBMED office / homework space / whatever. What do you think?
I feel honored to, gain access to this pickleball cave that you got here. I mean, you guys can't see it, but there's just paddles all back there. There's machines. It's pretty awesome for a paddle nerd like myself to see the inner workings of what goes into it.
Cave is good. Cave's a good way of saying it.
Yeah.
I requested a middle room, so there's no windows in here so that I can film in the dark. And so literally you just kind of come in and it's like, you're just like in this hole in the room here. My wife probably thinks it's too busy, but
there's something primal about this place. It's like your little reprieve, your little cave just for pickleball.
This is my space.
It is.
This is my space.
It's your
I can fill it with paddles.
It's your man cave away from home.
That's right. You've probably seen I've done some virtual stuff, which with my schedule and with my upcoming child has been difficult. And Cody and I were filming at night. This is the first time I've not filmed at night, actually. It's 11 o'clock in the morning / almost noon here. This is the first time ever in anything I've ever recorded that hasn't been in the dead of night, actually. Every review video I've ever done, because I was filming at home before and kids can go to sleep or whatever, they're all been at night. So this is my first daytime filming ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Again, honored. And, we're drinking coffee today instead of beer.
There's no beer here. I was like, this is so weird.
It's before noon. We can.
Yeah, it's like I've got lectures today and Brent's got work.
Yeah.
So we're going to try this and see how it goes. Brent's a local here to the Chapel Hill, Durham area. Graces me with his presence on the court sometimes. And he actually fits really well into the medicine part of pickleball medicine. Tell us what you do, Brent.
So by day, I'm a pharmacist. I graduated from pharmacy school in 2012. So I've been doing it, going on 13 years now, which makes me feel really old. But yeah, I started my career out like many pharmacists do out in retail, and I've kind of transitioned to more of a hospital-based position now. And I really enjoy it, and glad I could lend my credentials to the pickleball medicine pod. I
works really well. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of joke with my wife that she should call me Dr. Darden because, technically I have a PharmD, which is a doctor of pharmacy. Doctor of pharmacy. And we often joke that I'm not a real doctor. And if there's a heart attack happening, you still need to call actual doctor for that. But maybe I can help with some drugs.
Yeah. Give me 3 months and then I'll have my MD and then it'll be doctor and doctor.
There you go. I like it.
I actually don't know. Where'd you do your training?
Campbell University. So it's a smaller school about an hour south of here in a little town called Bowie's Creek, North Carolina. Go Camels. And I did my undergrad there as well. So I spent 7 years of my life there. Played tennis there my sophomore and junior year of undergrad. And then once pharmacy school started, kind of had to give that up. But great experience there. And yeah, I've been in the Triangle area, which is the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area of North Carolina since I graduated in 2012.
Yeah, I'm not from North Carolina. I'm from Utah, but I have some friends who go to Campbell for med school. So I know they have a med school there. So I'm vaguely familiar. But
some of my tuition dollars help fund that. They built the med school 2013, I think, or 2012. Whenever I was leaving, the med school got built. So whoever your friends are, you're welcome for my tuition dollars.
You're so giving. Brent is so giving. It's so great to have you on.
I'm almost done paying those back.
Yeah, and it's great. If you we might recognize Brent from a previous video. We've filmed a second actually with the review crew. I had Brent on with Damas and Nate, and they talked about the top 5 paddles that I rated for last year for 2024 and gave their opinions. We also got together with Brent and Nate again and have already filmed. So that's going to be, I'll publish that in a week or so, but it's already been filmed. It was filmed a week ago. So the timeline is strange, but we got together with you guys and did the Ripple, the 11SIX24s and the TruFoams, which was such a spectrum of a day, and we're going to cover those ones today too. So keep your eye out for that. And if you follow the Discord, you may recognize Brent in his terrorism of the Discord through PicklePharm. Can we disclose that? Is that like outing?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
We're outing
That's
Brent's Discord name.
I put Brent/PicklePharm now as the
right.
handle now. So just because some people have seen me as part of the review crew, so I was like, I'll name myself and
lean into
throw
the fame.
myself out there.
Heck yeah.
Lean into the fame. But yeah, I am PicklePharm on Discord and Instagram and the socials. Actually, I think I'm just on Instagram. I'm a bit of a elder millennial, so I don't have the TikTok or anything like that.
I have TikTok for editing purposes, and that's a weird area. But anyways, and Brent is one of the most paddle knowledgeable folks that I know. And even before I had Brent on anything, film wise, we were talking about paddles and construction and bouncing ideas off of each other. And he's helped a lot with the content of my review videos in the past. So as far as people to have on, he's very qualified. And he's okay at pickleball. So he should drill more. But other than that, it's okay. Our outline for today. So there are some big releases coming in like 10 days, and then after that there's more too, but this is like the big launch period where we've got TruFoams, the Ripple, the Honolulu's actually just went live on their website in the last day or two.
Oh wow.
And then the 11SIX24 power paddles. So these are exciting, and if you're looking for to get in on the excitement, I doubt most people are going to want to buy all 4 of these paddles. So Brent and I are going to give our thoughts on each of these, and then kind of which ones might be best for you, and rank them each for pop, power, control, spin, etc. in a little bit of our subjective opinions. But we'll go from there. Should we start with the TruFoams?
You want to do that? I like that. Yeah.
The TruFoams, just as an overview, so they have one standard shape and 2 elongated shapes. I think historically Carbon has called I forget which one they call the hybrid, but
I think it's the 3.
Is it the 3? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the width thing. Whatever it is, it's not hybrid in the sense that we think of in terms of length. They're both fully elongated. This is the one. It's got a longer handle. It's got the 5.5 inch handle, and then this is what's left of my 3. This is the face of the 3. So I cut this open for the review video, and I'll tear that apart for that. I won't talk a ton about that per se today, because I think we will push how much we can talk about with these. But that might be too far. That might be too far.
Carbon might frown upon that.
And then the 2, which is the standard shape. Let's start with you, Brent. What do you think? What was your experience with these paddles?
Yeah. So like you mentioned, we reviewed these as part of the review crew last week, I believe. And so that was my first time playing with these. And as the viewers will see in that video, I was not a fan of these at first. They're very unique in feel and just what you can do with the ball with these. And so it took me 3 or 4 games to get used to them. But by the 4th game, I'd say it was starting to feel a lot better to me. You kind of get used to that feel, that sinking in of the ball and kind of launching off the face. And I played with them more yesterday as well and gotten more and more familiar with them. So overall, once you get used to them, I think they are really nice paddles. The spin potential on these is the highest that I've played with. The amount of spin that I can get with these with serves and drives and kind of a hybrid drop with that heavy top spin is really, really nice. And I think that just goes to, the foam core, the construction of it.
Yeah.
I thought power-wise, I thought was really good. I'd say if I had to get I'd say it's in the power category.
Yeah, I was going to ask what you thought, because I think you're going to hear a lot of people who are going to say, oh, it's like all court leaning power, or it's a straight up power, or it's like low end of power. I think you're going to hear a lot of that because the feel is so interesting. So I wondered if you're calling it power though. You're saying power.
Yes, and I think you're spot on with that. And you just mentioned that, but it got me thinking already. Like, I think it depends on your stroke. So for me, when I really like, because I'm a bigger guy, 6'3", over 200 pounds, and like when I really lean in and engage a lot of wrist, the ball flies off of this paddle.
Yeah.
But I think if you're not kind of throwing your whole body into like a serve, or I don't really throw my whole body into a drive, but if you're not like putting in a good bit of effort, you might not feel like it's as powerful.
Yeah.
So in that regard, if I'm judging it based on my serves and my drives and how they feel, I'd say it is in the power category. It's probably lower end to maybe mid-tier. Mid-tier might be pushing it, but
for power, you mean?
For power.
Yeah.
I'd say it's in there, for me at least. What did you think of the power for your...
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that Justin from Pickleball, etc., said it really well when he's like, these are bad first impression paddles.
They really are.
With that being said, I've never had people ask more to use a paddle than these. Like I take like a huge box of paddles every time I go to the court so I can change them out. And people will come up and borrow them, and I like to let people borrow them because it's fun. Second off, it's good for me to hear feedback and what people think, and then it also gets more reps on all these paddles, so that if there is a break-in, we can get closer to it. But I've had people who've been like, this is just freaking awesome. Like Sam came up and he was like, this is the best like effing thing I ever, hit. But for me, my first time, I wasn't like a huge fan. I was like, oh, this is like kind of weird. I'm not sure. But then every single time I played with it, I liked it more and more. But I wasn't sure what I thought about the power until I started switching back and forth game to game between, I think I was telling you, I went between the Carbon, the TruFoam Genesis 1 and the Pickleball Apes Pulse X, and the Genesis 2 and the Pulse V. And it was just a huge difference. Both of the Genesis paddles at that point it was obvious to me that they hit harder and that the sweet spots were bigger. I've never thought that in my life I would say that the edges of the Pulse X or the Pulse V felt dead, but going from this to that, that's how it felt. And they hit so much harder that I was like, okay, even when I was thinking those might have been borderline, these clearly are above that. So for me, yeah, definitely power. And I won't share numerical values today. I'll save that for the review. But they do drive, at a good objective, measured rate when hitting from the baseline or whatever too. So power was good, and I think you were saying spin was really good for you too, and I agree it was.
Yeah, like I said, probably the most highest spin potential paddle that I've hit, and I think the way I play it lends itself to more spin. But some of the drives I was hitting, like in our review crew episode, like they would just clear the net by this much with tons of pace and still drop 2 or 3 feet in, and it almost seemed unfair for a moment there. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to repeat that every time, but that was... Yeah, I haven't experienced that level of spin potential with any other paddle that I have personally hit. I haven't hit nearly as many paddles as you have, but just for me, it's high.
Yeah, I think if you're thinking all foam core, which it's like the secret's out, that's what it is. They've been developing that for a long time. And if you were thinking that this was going to be like one of those, non-approved super, EVA trampolini blast off the face power paddles. That's not at all what these feel like, and that's not what they do.
Like a Vice or a Hush.
Exactly. Yeah. That is not it. And these are not. The pop it's again so hard to tell because the feel is so dampened. Like there is no paddle out there that dampens vibrations like these. But with that being said, I do feel like the pop itself is lower. That might be, so pop is lower, control is good, and that kind of rounds out my experience with them. The best advice I got after my first day, I texted Justin because I knew he had these.
The Oracle.
I was like, what? Like, dude, I'm not really impressed right now. And he's like, just swing through and trust the spin. And I was like, all right. And I started doing that, and it started getting much better.
That's honestly what I started doing too, because you kind of told me that on the court too, like just swing through and trust that it's going to go in. And I think the first serve I hit with that mentality did go out, but it was because I really...
What a coach, huh?
I think I trusted it a little too much.
The 4-5 teaching the 5-5.
Sure. But after that first one that I really let fly and saw what it could do, I dialed it back maybe 10%, and it was just landing heavy spin right near the baseline on serves. It felt really nice. I'm glad you brought up the pop. I was kind of nervous to tell you what I thought of the pop.
Well, I know you don't like it. I remember.
It is lower pop than I was expecting from a full foam core coming from, my closest comparison to like foam cores is the Olympus and the Ripple to a certain extent, and I was expecting a lot of like trampoline on the shorter, on the the kitchen dinks and whatnot, and that was not there, which was pleasant for me. I just dumped a lot in the net because I was expecting more, Yeah, I'm not saying that it's low pop in the grand scheme of all paddles, but it's just lower than what I was thinking. I think there's still decent pop, but it's nothing like a Ripple or even an Olympus.
Yeah. And you've reminded me of another thought too, just bringing up the Ripple and some of those other Gen 3 paddles. It'll be interesting because we have some new ones coming in, but from day one when I hit this, it took maybe like a couple of days to kind of soften up the components. Like all paddles do, they get just a little bit more flexy, as kind of the glue loosens and it breaks into like a non-broken in kind of feel. After that, I haven't noticed any difference in how it's played or felt. So durability wise, it's the same paddle it was on day one, like maybe after that little loosening period, to what it is now. So, that's nice. It's hard to dial in with the weird feel and the pop, but once you do, you can come up to the court and know you're getting the same paddle every time, and that's nice.
Yeah. How much, do you have an idea of how much playtime has been on these, or if one is more than the other? Yeah,
at this point, so the 2 has taken over as my main paddle. Clearly the 3 is dead, so it's reached its peak of playtime. But the 1 and the 2 actually have a pretty good amount. The 2 has a lot, because it's, like I said, it's been my main paddle now, so I play with it every day, every time I play. I'll test paddles, and then I'll at least want to play with whatever my main paddle is. And then I did an event with Damas this weekend where I played with it, so...
I saw the third place in the little mini tourney there.
I'm not even saying how many teams, but we did get third place.
Third place, man.
We did get third place.
Bronze is bronze,
That's right. Exactly. But no, I'll estimate an hour. I don't know how many hours, but a good few weeks of play, at least, on the 1 and the 2, and the 2 more so. So that's probably good for those. And we'll circle back and kind of give ratings of them and tier these 1 through 4 on these. But let's go then to the Ripple. This is what's left of my this is my approved Ripple.
Dustin's been in a bit of a destructive mood.
I have been.
It seems like over the past week or so.
I have. Yes, I need answers.
Residency gets hard. You need an outlet. I get it.
You should see the machinery I bought for this stuff.
I saw it out in the hall, actually.
I bought a bandsaw. I've got jigsaws. I brought a microscope. So all that's going to be part of my Ripple review, my TruFoam review, and my 11SIX24 power review. I won't show the inside of the Ripple today, but I'll say it is very interesting.
Very unique.
And there could not, and it's, man, the stark contrast difference between the inside of the Ripple and the TruFoam as far as the cores I showed you before we started was a little bit of a teaser. They couldn't be more different.
Oh, yeah.
In how they feel, how they are composed. So that's going to be pretty cool to share. Yeah. Plus, I still need to run it up under a microscope and just kind of see. I don't know what I'm looking for, per se, but I'll come up with something and I'll find something interesting and share.
You're a smart guy. You'll figure it out.
I'll come up with a question of some kind to explore. But the Ripple is actually really interesting because it's good to have you on, because Brent actually mained the beta Ripple for a long time. And for clarity purposes, the Ripple that most people, the R1.14, the Ripple that they have is... that most people have tried already, if they have, is the beta Ripple. Then there was like the first production Ripple, which a handful of reviewers had, that was supposedly even like hotter than the beta Ripple. And then there's now this one that is like the released public Ripple.
Yeah, the PB Core certified
Ripple. Exactly. Yeah. And so you've played with the beta Ripple, as have I, and now the released Ripple that we have here. How did it compare between the two for you?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And so your Ripple, the production Ripple...
the newest one.
Yeah, I think it had some hours on it before I got to hit it. I'm not sure how many.
Yeah, but a good solid few sessions at least.
Yeah, but it seemed like it had kind of loosened up a bit. So the level of like power and pop on your production ripple that's PB Core certified after a few hours of play reminded me a lot of my beta ripple after it had a week or two of play on it as well.
Yeah.
It's very high power, very high pop. The pop is the thing that separates it, in my opinion, from the other like top tier power foam enhanced paddles.
Yeah.
Is that ability to counter and speed up so quickly. So at least the one that you have that is seemingly slightly broken in, if there even is a break-in period, like I'm not sure yet, because the production models have only been in the hands of people for so long. It seems pretty close to the beta that I was playing with.
Yeah. I took them out, like when I first got it, I took my beta in this one and just kind of hit some soft things side by side the court. And I didn't feel any difference. Like I hit soft, I hit big, and I was like, oh, it's not like, I think they're like basically the same. Mm-hmm. And construction wise, you can see on x-rays, and I'll show on the review, I've cut open a beta and the production ripple. The core component of it, the grid system, goes up higher towards the tip of the paddle than on the beta. So there's more of that core, structural component to the new one. And I think that's to solve some of the issues that they were having on the tip of that paddle where it was getting soft. But like just hitting them, I didn't feel a difference. But then in gameplay, I felt that they were a little bit different. But sounds like it from what you're saying is that with your maybe 1-ish, 2-ish week broken in beta, you felt like it was pretty comparable to what I had, which I would say at that time was probably like a week or so worth of breaking in.
Yeah, and it gave me more to think about, because a good buddy of mine also
Perry,
he plays with the Ripple, and he just got in his new production model, and I drilled with him last week, and it was one of the first sessions that he had used his production model, and seeing and feeling the counters from Perry's pretty much new production model compared to like the flicks that Nate was hitting in our review crew episode. Nate was ripping those. It felt pretty different, honestly. Like, so I don't know if that is due to this perceived or real break-in period with these production models or not, but the pace that he was generating, Perry, with the relatively new production model, seemed lower than Nate with a more broken in production model.
Do you think it's just that Nate hits harder?
Not on flicks. Well, okay, Nate's flick is really
Nate's got
good.
A really sick, like,
it's a very violent
the Ben Jones thing.
Yeah, it's a very violent flick. But I've played Perry in the past when he had his alpha ripple and his beta ripple, and those, from what I remember, came off hotter than what I was getting from him on his pretty new production model.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that I think time will tell on these new production models. After people play a month on them, are they going to open up and be just as hot as the betas?
I think that's the question mark, is we just don't know. We don't have enough time yet on the. And I even said that I've already filmed my review for this actually, except for the dissection part. I've got to add that because I want to find more stuff. But that is the question we have with the PB Core certified ripple is, what's it going to do in 2 months or 3 months? I know. Yeah, I agree. I think there's probably like a few days of like at least loosening up. But what happens after that, I do not know. And I'm now going to have to get a new one to get back on that journey. Yeah. But others will probably have a head start on me in figuring that out. But yeah, right now it's still wildly poppy. It's still going to be the same menace that you experienced with the beta ripple that people had out there. And it's probably the most powerful and poppy paddle that is going to be out there for the foreseeable future, at least from anything I've hit at this point.
Yeah, I would agree. So I would say that I feel like the ripples, the production ones, are going to break in very similarly to how the older models did. And I think once they have that break in, it's going to be the mod 2.0.
So you predict there is going to be a big break-in. That's what you think?
I think so. And that's all speculation right now. Don't quote me on that.
Well,
but
we don't have anything that tells us it's not.
Yeah. Just judging by how much hotter this felt versus the one that my buddy was using that was pretty much out of the box. It felt pretty different to me. Like I was drilling with him. We were doing hands. I was using, it was either the 𝒊𝒏𝒌𝒔 power or the vapor power. And my counters felt pretty close to his counters, which was surprising because that did not feel the way as your more broken in one did when we play tested those last week. Yeah,
and Perry does hit hard too. So I played him on Saturday. And he still hits pretty hard and pretty poppy, but Nate was ripping him that day. You're right. He was, would it surprise you? Well, I'll circle back to that point.
Okay.
I'll circle back to that point. Okay, let's do since we're kind of going in subjective order of powerness. Let's do the 𝒊𝒏𝒌𝒔s next, and then we'll go to the Honolulus because that's kind of its own interesting beast.
Sure.
So the 𝒊𝒏𝒌𝒔 powers, these come out on February 7th, right? Am I remembering that right?
Much anticipated.
Yeah.
Discord's going nuts right now.
And man, these, and I think well deserved too.
Absolutely.
Not only just from David and 11SIX24's previous body of work, but these paddles are pretty cool for a couple of reasons that I'll bring up. But yeah, the 𝒊𝒏𝒌𝒔 power, which is, the elongated one, and then a couple of, and that's a unique shape on its own. But then a couple other unique shapes. We got the Vapor, that's the hybrid. You can see it kind of like flares up, but then it's got that crown top. I was really surprised. I've had two people now say that I have like, oh, you'd probably like this, and I show it, and they're like, no. They would not even try it from how it looks. Maddie, John's partner, she's like, no, I'm not using that. I'm like, what? I actually think it looks pretty cool. Yeah. And then the Pegasus, which is the previous Monarch shape, that this is the wide body. And all these have really small circumference handles too, which is pretty cool. But these come out on the 7th, and these are a super awesome price. I think it's right around $170, and then you could take another $10 off with discount codes or whatever. But these are their own beast. These are their own thing, and they feel different even than any of these other 4 models. And which one of these have you been using the most?
Yeah, so I started out with the Vapor because I thought I was going to be Team Vapor all the way, and it is amazingly stable. Can we say numbers? I think
you can say numbers here. You can say numbers here. Yeah.
So from what I've seen, the twist weight on this stock is over 7 or it's approaching 7, depending on who's measured it.
Yeah, it's either right there close. I can't remember what it is, but it's very close. It's high.
Yeah, it's high 6.9 or low 7.71 stock, which is pretty great for a hybrid paddle. And I think that's in part due to this kind of unique and interesting shape. So yeah, I started out with the Vapor, added just a little bit of the, I've been hitting with this lately, so that's my lead setup on it, just a little lower on there. I started with it a little bit higher.
Doing on here? Just kidding.
I started with it a little bit higher, didn't quite like the way that felt, so I moved it a little lower. Super stable, really good pop, crisp, nice feel, pretty good power on it too. I would say these are also in the power category.
Yeah, I agree.
To me, they're on the lower end of power category, but I've heard differing opinions on that. I'd say the pop is definitely power category.
Yeah, that's the clear thing that pushes it over for me. It's like, as opposed to like the TruFoams, which hit hard on drives but don't have a lot of pop.
Yep.
These still hit good on drives, but it's the pop that kind of bumps them over, that they have, the way you said crisp was nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not super stiff feeling. It's also like a unique feeling paddle.
It is.
It's not super plush. It's not super stiff. I think crisp is the most like subjective term that I can use that's appropriate here, is that it does have some dwell time, but not a ton.
Yeah.
And the ball just comes off nice and crisp. So yeah, I started with the Vapor. Eventually, it got to feel weird to me when I was trying to do my really wristy like flicks and from pretty low under the net, right? Trying to reach in and really get those balls. I didn't think I had either the weight set up correct, or there just wasn't enough weight up here to really drive that paddle head through. It almost felt too stable to me, and I don't know if that's even a thing, right?
Was that when you had the weight up here at the 3 and 9?
Yeah, so I had it up here higher, and I was like, this still doesn't quite feel like I have enough head weight to swing through. I think I tried it a little bit higher, still didn't feel good. So just because I like to experiment, I was like, all right, I'll lower it down and see if that helps. That still didn't really do it for me. So while it is super stable and feels great, I eventually moved on to the 𝒊𝒏𝒌𝒔 shape here, which is their elongated version, and that gave me what I was looking for in terms of that ability to take those out of the kitchen, flick them, and get that momentum that I needed. And I don't know if that's just purely from the reach, I got an extra 0.2, 0.3 inches there on that, or if it's just the weight set up. But the 𝒊𝒏𝒌𝒔 with a little bit of weight down here for increased stability, because this one's not as twist weight high and stable as the Vapor is. Yeah. So I think it benefited from a little bit of lead down there to help with that stability.
I think it needed. I think it does need lead or weight for sweet spot and stability. Supplementation. I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, completely agree. The first time I hit it was with you like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was bone stock, no lead, and it felt a little less stable than I was hoping for. It wasn't unstable out of the box. It just was, I thought it needed a little bit more. So I added that, and I really like the way that one feels. Like I said, power to me is low end of the power category. Pop is pretty clearly like mid-tier power category pop for me. What did you think of them? I know I've been rambling on about these, but I really like them.
So this is one big question mark that I had for these, and any Gen 2 or Gen 3 or Gen 4, whatever paddle is, what's it going to be like in 2 months? Can I recommend it, knowing that it's going to like break, or you're going to need to put time on it or whatever? So I had Jaya tested this one. I loaned this to Jaya. He himself put 30 hours or so on it.
Wow.
I hit it before that. We've hit it. Other people have hit it. So I'd say this probably has at least 50 hours of play on it. It feels the exact same as it did the very first day I played with it. Really, I mean, and even less probably of that, like that, softening, period that it all paddles have at the start. I didn't even notice a difference in that regard. So, and the surface, like,
I was going to say the surface looks really good for 40, 50 hours of use. Yeah, that's
some
really
of these
nice.
paddles you hit them and they're just like, oh, that's a smooth paddle.
Exactly.
But I don't know why or how, but it still feels very textured on the face. I can't explain that, but the way the pop, the power, all that feels the exact same on this. So that's super nice. In that regard, this and the TruFoam kind of stand out to me from the rest of the market in at least there's perceived durability at this point.
That they have that little slight break in, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, they really do. That claim of, gonna last a while, whatever changes. I think they have it. I think, they're pretty crisp. So if you have a hard time with control, like for me, if I'm having an off day, they're a little too poppy for me. It's nowhere near like the Ripper, but I like the Vapor the most because it's the way the shape of it brings the sweet spot up a little bit on the paddle face, so I like that reach. And it's a bit more stable than the X. I think this is the model that most people are probably going to like the most.
Yeah, I agree.
It just kind of has a nice intersection. But man, spin is good. It's good, but not like unbelievable. It's just good. It's good spin, good pop. And these are just all around solid paddles for people who want to get into that power realm, but they don't want the Ripper and they don't want to spend a frick load of money. I think these are really, really solid paddles. I'm impressed.
It's
very with these.
Very approachable power.
That's a good phrase,
from a 3.5, 4.0 player trying to add a little more power to their game, if that's what you're kind of looking for. I think it's controllable power. The pop can sometimes get you in trouble, but I think at the price point, at the durability that you've mentioned on the 𝒊𝒏𝒌𝒔, like it's hard to not recommend that paddle. And
they look good too. I like that. What do you call that? Teal?
Yeah, it's like a teal gradient thing they got going there. I like it a lot too. I need to get some teal overgrips. I'm usually like just a white overgrip.
I have some. I can get. We need to start testing more overgrips, but I don't care what anyone says. I like the way the Vapor looks, and that's probably a good segue into the next paddle too. In terms of stepping up in power from some other level, we've got the J2K Plus and the J2Ti Plus, and then after that, after we talk about these, we'll kind of rank all these paddles in different categories. But these are cool, and these surprised me. And also, I don't know if you saw, so these are Gen 3 paddles. So they've got the normal perimeter. Both of these have the normal perimeter edge foam, and we talked about these a little last time, but I've had more playtime on them, and now you've tested them. And then they've got a full floating core, so a full ring in there. As opposed to like the more peninsula shaped, inner lining of the like the YOLOs and some others. Right away, when I hit these, they felt broken in almost. Like they felt very floaty. That floaty core was like already compressing in, and I was like, "Ooh, these are sweet." I was playing with Marco and some other guys that morning, and Marco tried the J2Ti or the J2K Plus first, and he was like, "Wow, this has some juice to it." And he was going from the TruFoam to that. So there is a big difference there in feel, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But they're the most floaty feeling paddle off the get-go that I've probably ever played with, and the feel is so pleasant. It's so nice. They also come in at a good price, so they're like, you said 165, is that right?
I believe 165 before code.
Somewhere right there. And then if you do PBMED-Kevlar, for the Kevlar one, it's $20 off, and PBMED for the TI one, it's 10% off. So anything Kevlar, you keep the Kevlar and you get a little bit more off, and they're just going to kind of keep sticking to that. But so again, a great price compared to these, but also the kicker here is that Jam is he's a seriously good dude, and he knows, like on the phone, he's like, yeah, these are going to break down like any other Gen 3 paddle, and I know it. So if you order one, they're doing, I think the warranty's kind of short, so it's like 3 months, but you can buy up to 2 additional paddles if you purchase an original one for 50% off each. Oh. So I don't know what their cost is, so I can't say if they are or aren't still making money. I really have no idea. I mean, they probably got to be, but that's their way of kind of saying like, yeah, we know it's going to break down. If you buy one, you can get a couple more whenever. Or I don't know what the time limit is on that either, but they're trying to rectify that in some sort of way.
That's nice, especially given the pretty low price point already for a Gen 3 foam enhanced paddle. Like to offer up to 50% off for up to 2, that's pretty solid deal. And I like that they're kind of acknowledging that the foam enhanced paddles durability is a big issue.
Yeah, if you should take extreme caution with any company, and I'm just now noticing that is right there. We should put that down. That stupid thing. What we're saying? Oh yeah. So anyways, you should take a big grain of salt anytime anyone's like, oh yeah, this XYZ component of my paddle that's known to break down on all paddles is going to last a long time, whether that's grit or core crushing or whatever. And so for Jam to just be like, hey, look, this is the truth. With 2 exceptions being, I think so far, the 11SIX24 powers and the TruFoams, most paddles do seem to follow a typical, they are going to break down. That's just the way it works. You also have recently tested the J2K and J2Ti, as well as the 14 millimeter J2K. What did you feel about the differences between these and those?
Yeah, so I mained the J2K, probably 6 months back for about a month or so. And then I hit, like you said, the 14 millimeter version with you and the TI version with you. So these feel very similar to their non-power counterparts with more power and pop. So it's aptly named, right? Like they're just going to take that award-winning J2 shape, and they're going to add some foam, and they're going to increase the power, increase the pop. And I actually think they somehow increased the sweet spot as well on these.
I was going to ask, that was my next, as far as plushness and sweet spot.
Yeah.
And I do think the sweet spot is bigger. And I think they're more plush feeling probably because of that moving core.
I agree. Like, I didn't think you could get much better as far as stability and sweet spot than a J2K. Just the shape and the construction. It came with a really high twist weight, but these feel really nice. I was surprisingly partial to the softer J2Ti.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear that.
Yeah. I was very surprised myself. I thought I would prefer the more crisp, stiffer feeling J2K Plus.
Yeah.
But I hit a couple of games with the J2K and then hit right after that with the J2Ti, and that extra plushness paired with the increased power and pop was just a really good combo for me. There was very little harsh feedback on these. Everything felt like I was hitting the sweet spot, which is just a testament to how stable these paddles are.
Yeah, I agree. The first day, maybe the second day, one of those first few days I was testing these, I was testing them with the Ripple and some other more power-oriented paddles. And I was not having a good day my playing, so I was like, oh, I don't know this shit. So I put the Ripple down, and I just got to hit my shots. So I pulled these out, and they're much better in control than I wonder. I'm not sure I would put them full on in the power category. I think they're kind of borderline. I think I'd probably put them on the higher end of all court. What do you think? Would you call them power? I mean, their name is power.
Yeah.
What is it though? Well, they're the plus models. I don't know if they're actually saying that, but do you think, would you put them in power category, or would you just say they're more all court?
I think I'm more with you. I think they really straddle that line of all court and power. I think it depends on whose hands they're in, honestly.
Yeah.
I'd say for most people, it would be more top of all court as far as power and pop, and you do get a little bit more power and pop, at least from what I felt from just the regular J2K, not the regular J2K, the J2K Plus versus the J2Ti Plus. I felt a little more pop, a little more power from the J2K Plus versus the Ti Plus.
Yeah, I think the stiff Kevlar face, kind of the more, well, material-wise, the more stiff material probably gives it more of that pop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely felt that way. Like, I felt more feedback with the J2K Plus versus the Ti Plus, and it felt a little bit more poppy, a little bit more powerful. But like, the difference between these two is very small. Like, it's not like the J2K Plus is up here and the Ti is way down here. I think they both push the all court, not quite creeping into power just yet. I don't know how much time these have had on them. I know that they do break in and then eventually break down.
Yeah.
But I think where they are right now, it's top of the all court for me.
Man, and I gotta say, my first thing is like, you'll upgrade in most ways compared to the J2K and Ti, but your trade-off is durability. But that's a good point. I have yet to see it proven that they are going to break down any faster than any other paddle. Really, I have not experienced that yet. I don't know anybody personally who's experienced that yet. I think Jam was saying that, over several months or whatever, he's heard reports of that, but we keep saying that, but I haven't seen any evidence so far, but it's part of the game. Yeah. So it's if I'm going to infer what's going to happen in the future, it probably will happen.
Yeah. If the owner says it's likely going to happen, then it probably will. Yeah. It just might take a little longer than expected, which is nice. Like, the longer it lasts, the better.
Let's prove it.
Yeah.
Let's prove it. Let's break them down.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's so now that we got these we've got good paddles coming up after this too. I think the super courts are coming out. I think the date has changed a little on those, but they'll be in February, I believe, and the Echoes, and there's more good paddles, but these are kind of the Gen 3, Gen 4, hot paddles of the next 10 days or so. Right?
These have been the highly anticipated ones for a while now, especially the TruFoams. They've been in development for a long time.
I put them on, Facebook polls and different groups and whatever, and really, between excitement-wise, the TruFoams and the 11SIX24 Power seem to be running away in my polls, but the Ripples and the J2Ti Pluses have got a lot of, requests as well and get a lot of popularity.
That's true. I actually forgot about the Ripple because all I have is the face right here. So
we're a little two-dimensional right now.
It was out of sight, out of mind for me. But yeah, like the TruFoam and the Ripple both have been in development for such a long time, highly anticipated. I know there's a lot more Ripples in the wild than TruFoams, but
Let's go through then and say who will rank. I want to rank these in different categories and kind of say like who we think, if you're deciding on just one of these paddles, if you want to get one of these paddles, who they might be good for. And I'm a little bit excited for this. So let's start with pop. And and some of these are easy, some of these are less easy. But let's rank these 1 through 4 for pop. You go first on this one.
Okay. Okay, so pop, I got to go with the Ripple there as number one, the most poppy. You know, based on that one that you have there, and then second, I would say the 11SIX paddles. That crisp feel leads to that nice amount of pop, and then I'd go here as number three for pop.
When you say here, you're saying the J2Ti plus, J2K plus.
Yes. Sorry.
With the J2K plus, I assume ahead of the J2Ti plus.
J2K plus is probably, you know, a little bit behind the 11SIX24 powers, but not super far. And then I'd say the TruFoam is my last as far as pop, and that could just be my perceived. Okay. You know, it's so plush that I don't feel a lot of pop off of that. And, you know, the 11SIX24 is very crisp, so it feels like I'm getting a lot of pop. But that's, in my playing experience, that's what I have felt. So as far as pop, it goes Ripple, 11SIX24, J2K plus, then the TruFoam.
I love that because, man, we're going to see that all over the spectrum too. But clear the Ronbus Ripper is the clear number one. Even before any break-ins, whenever there's nothing as poppy as it is that is currently, you know, legal, and people can argue back and forth about that in a mod. But, you know, it's definitely the Ripper. Then the 11SIX24 power paddles, they're very crisp, very poppy. And then I actually thought third was the TruFoam models. Okay. And then the J2K plus and J2Ti plus. I think you're going to see a lot of things. Man, it's going to vary because the feel, you get almost no feedback from these. So if you like to feel where you're hitting on the face, you're not going to feel that as much with the TruFoams. And so as a result of that, I think people are going to think, first off, I think a lot of people are going to think it has zero pop because they can feel it zero.
Right.
So it's hard to gauge without being able to feel it, but to see it and to like go back and forth between it and other paddles, it'll be higher than what you expect when you feel it. I'll say that. And I do think they are close, but I would go Ripple, 11SIX24s, TruFoams, then the J2K pluses. But again, the feel is different. What about overall power as far as bigger swings, drives, and serves? What's your rankings on those?
Ripple, number one.
Yeah.
You know, king of power and pop right now as far as what is PB Core certified and legal. I guess technically the mods and PP are legal until July, but I'm going to consider them not legal for the purposes of this. Yeah. So Ripple number one, TruFoam number two for me on that one as far as power.
I assume
goes.
Elongated, it's a bit more than the two.
Yeah, I could really get some nice RPMs and miles per hour with the TruFoams for serves and drives. Number three will be 11SIX24 powers. Mostly the 𝒊𝒏𝒌𝒔, but the Vapor also has good power to me as well. There's not much difference to me in terms of power and pop on this whole line here. I think you can just get a little bit more leverage with the longer 𝒊𝒏𝒌𝒔 shape than you can with the others.
Yeah, I agree.
And then the J2K plus would be number four on power for me.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on the top and bottom for sure. The Ripple, even at its 14 millimeter lightweight design, relatively lightweight, I'll say, definitely hits the hardest on drives. And then they still hit good, but they're the softest, I think, of the four, the Honolulu Gen 3s. These are harder for me. And if I forget what I've measured them on miles per hour, because subjective experiences probably a little bit better than numerical value.
See, all I have is subjective.
Which is fine,
you got both to
because
go
like
on.
when you sit, people should. Miles per hour is so. It's a number that has to be taken in context of everything else because you just hit at the baseline. And for me, I swing as hard as I can, so I can make a lot of paddles. You know, hit a decent peak, and then fine details are bigger than it seems, but they're really close. Did you say TruFoam's number two? Because I'm going to say TruFoam's number two, at least the elongated ones.
Yeah, the TruFoam 1 in particular is what I hit the most. Yeah,
the 1 and 3, which I cut open. My 3 was a little heavier than I think most people's. But then I think the 2 is probably behind the 2 longer 𝒊𝒏𝒌𝒔 powers. And then maybe the TruFoam 2 and then the Pegasus. For me, with the 11SIX24s, I felt like the 𝒊𝒏𝒌𝒔 and the Vapor where like if you follow like a pattern of what typical shapes would have with power, it's like the elongated ones, then the hybrid ones, then the standard ones are a little lower. I think that the two longer ones, the full length ones and the hybrids were closer up towards the top, and then there was a bigger jump down, I thought, to the Pegasus.
Yeah, I didn't play the Pegasus nearly as much as you did, so yeah, it's good to hear your feedback on that. But I agree about the 𝒊𝒏𝒌𝒔 and the Vapor as far as being close in terms of power and pop, much closer than I would have expected, like an elongated and a hybrid version of the same paddle to be.
These are close though. The TruFoams and the 11SIX24s are close. It's kind of more about feel, I think. You'll get good drive power on both of them, but the feel is very different. What do you think about? Let's go to the other end of that spectrum. Which of these was easiest to control, easiest to least easy to control for you?
Yeah, and this is where things might get skewed based on my prior experience with the Ripple, because I think I share opinions with people that have had a lot of use with the Ripple on how easy to control it is versus other people that haven't had a ton of experience with the Ripple of how hard it is to control. So, prefacing with that, I'd say that the easiest for control was probably the J2K models, especially the J2Ti. That's so nice, and it's not overly plush, but it's so nice and soft, but has good power on it as well. Easy to control, as I think followed pretty closely by the J2K Plus. From there, that's where things get interesting, and probably where we're going to diverge.
I foresee differences coming. Okay,
probably where we're going to diverge. Number 2 for me is the Ripple.
Oh,
based on my just a lot of experience with it.
Yeah,
resets, dinks are so easy with this paddle for someone that has gotten used to it, because there's something in the core. It just kind of absorbs a lot of energy from hard shots, and it makes it so easy for me to reset. When I went from the Ripple to, I think I went from the Ripple to a Pulse as my main, the thing I missed the most was the reset ability.
Wow.
Which is not what you'd expect.
You're not going to hear that often.
You're not going to hear that often. But of the people that I've talked to that, have used the Ripple a lot, have used the higher power, like the mod, the 3S, and then the 𝒊𝒏𝒌𝒔 Gen 3s, like the original Gen 3s that got banned.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that I play with in that kind of 5.0 plus category, once they dial that reset in, it's so easy just to pop it back over.
It's kind of sickening. Like I played with Brady on Saturday, and he was like, it's like putting barely any swing onto his mod. It was just like boom, boom. It's similar with when Perry was playing with the Ripple too. Yeah, like just like if you can dial in that minimal low kinetic energy swing. Yeah, man, the resets are great.
They are.
I have a harder time with that, but yeah.
Yeah, they feel so nice. So that's gonna be an unpopular opinion. I would say most people are not gonna have that opinion.
I've seen it though. I have seen it. It's kind of polarizing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Ripple's 2 for you.
For control, yeah. And then once I got used to the feel, I would say the TruFoams will be number 3 on control. And then I would say the Power Series is probably number 4. Not that it's not controllable. It's just of these up here.
That's so interesting.
It was the least controllable to me, I think, because of the really crisp response from the paddle face. Again, I could see myself maining the Vapor or the 𝒊𝒏𝒌𝒔. I would just need to dial in that kind of crisp feel.
Yeah, if you're used to a lot of dwell time and a paddle that really absorbs,
like
then you're
going to broken Impulse S.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, then that's going to be an adjustment for you. It's very consistent, but it doesn't have that same quite massive absorption, so the resets would be a little bit harder. Clear number 1 I think was the J2Ti Plus, and then followed by the J2K Plus for my easiest to control. We diverge here. I think that the TruFoams were my second easiest to control. Probably a mix of like but man, it is an adjustment, because I didn't feel that way on day 1. I was like I couldn't hit drops and drives actually. Probably relying a lot on that feel that I hadn't developed yet. Yeah. But now like the 2 especially, the sweet spot I think is very good. And I can reset and dink super well, so that was my go-to for that event this weekend. And then after that, the 11SIX24 paddles, they are more crisp, and I'm used to more of that. Or like my main paddles have been, now the TruFoam to the Pulse X and the Pulse V, which are all like high absorption paddles. So the crisp feel of the 11SIX24s is not the movement that I'm most used to. So I had a little bit of a harder time. And then, yeah, I don't move very fluid and deliberate and like slow. So the ripple was harder for me.
Sure.
Like resets were tough, but yeah, so that was the least easy for me to control. I do think, yeah, you're right. You're going to hear spectrums on that, depending on, and I think that speaks a lot to the amount of time a person will put on a paddle.
Yeah.
For what their experience is. And man, it's what makes some of these reviews hard. But
it is.
The more time you put on, the more you're going to really know.
Absolutely.
Okay, then spin. Would it surprise you if I told you that, including the ones I've cut apart, that 3 of these individual paddles had RPM rates in the top 5 of any that I've ever recorded?
Oh, it would not surprise me at all.
Why don't let's hear your rankings, and then I won't share the, can I share? Yeah, hell, I'll share.
Right.
I won't share specific numbers, but I'll say which ones are in the top 5. But let's hear what you think for a spin.
That's a good idea to share. And it's not surprising that some of these paddles are in the top 5 for sure. Before I hit the TruFoam, I would have said that the Ripple had the highest spin potential and something that I could shape the ball with just so much ease. Now hitting the TruFoam, I think I would have to rate the TruFoam as having the highest spin, followed really closely by the Ripple. And then, yeah, I think the 11SIX24s also have really good spin. It's hard to rate spin these days because everything has above 2,000
You should.
spins.
If you don't have above 2,000, then you're shit. Really.
Everything
should be great. And then we're just talking like premier levels. Yeah.
Exactly. Like 2,000 used to be like top tier.
Yeah.
And now it's like the jumping off point for a good paddle.
Yeah.
So I would say 11SIX24 would be my third, and then the Honolulu Plus versions would be number 4 for me as far as spin goes.
Okay. Yeah. And because measured RPMs are different than like what you experience in subjective gameplay. And I think there's value to both. But what you experience playing at the net on little flicks and what you're doing at the midcourt versus testing RPMs on serves and stuff, they are different.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that probably my experience I actually haven't measured the specific RPMs on the Honolulu models, but this is one of the times when I think what I've measured matches what I experienced in gameplay. I thought that, so the paddles that were in my top 5 for measured RPMs were the Ripple, which now has my highest recorded RPMs, followed by the TruFoam Genesis 2 and the Genesis 1. The Genesis 3 was also high, just wasn't in my top 5, and I don't think that means anything per se other than just what the averages ended up being, but and maybe it's a little bit harder, so that energy is transferred in a little bit of a different way. But I think that did match my subjective rating. That I would say the Ripple, then the TruFoams, then actually I think the Honolulu paddles, probably because for me they absorbed a little bit better and grabbed a little bit more, and I jived with that a little better. Could utilize the spin and compression more, and then the 11SIX24 power paddles next. I think they spin good, like I said, but the pop kind of offset the feel for me of like finding the best spin. But like I said, all very good.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like I had a hard time choosing between these two as far as which one had the higher perceived spin, and I could totally see, like, especially the TI being softer, it kind of like sinks in a little bit more, and you get more of that spin, whereas it doesn't quite sink in as much with the 11.6s. So yeah, I could completely understand why you'd rank this one above these powers.
And it's just probably personal preference on paddle playability.
Yeah,
I think one interesting thing to touch on with between the high spin rates of the Ripple and the TruFoam, and maybe you can tell me if you agree with this, but I feel like hitting with the Ripple, I could activate the spin with a little bit less energy, because maybe the pop. I don't totally know why, but I felt with less effort, smaller movements, I could get it to spin a little bit easier off of the Ripple or more consistently. The TruFoam, it was a little bit more of an activation type swing, like medium-ish swings more and more higher swings. Excuse me. were what I saw the spin the most on the TruFoams. Tell me if that resonates with you or not.
100% agree on that. I think that's one of the really unique features about the Ripple is that it's minimal effort to create a lot of pace, power, and spin.
Yeah.
So, the guy I play with that's been maining the Ripple for a while.
Perry. We can name people.
I know,
Perry.
His
get it, Perry.
His flicks, like you don't see them coming a lot of the times because it's a very short movement, and with the Ripple, like that combination of, Perry is a good player, he has a really good flick, and he can disguise it so well because he only has to do this, and the ball is like in your chest sometimes.
I think he hit me this weekend. I can't remember.
I can see that. Yeah.
I get hit a lot actually, because I was playing the right and he plays on the left, and so I'm like watching a cross dink, which you can argue whether you should do or not, and I'm just like, poof, then all of a sudden it's like in my face. So anyways, Perry will get what's coming to him.
Yeah. And this I needed to input more swing, more power, and I think I said that earlier too. When it came to like ranking the power, I had to put more of my body and more of a longer swing into things to almost activate that power, whereas you don't have to with the Ripple.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's just a difference in how people like to play and whatever. But that was a big difference that I noted there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, was there another? One more thing I wanted to rate or rank.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, Brent, what you thought of the sweet spot sizes of these paddles. And granted, there's different shapes in each of them, so however you want to do that. Let's rank those 1 through 4.
Yeah. Really good contenders up here.
Yeah, there is actually. And they're so different, too.
They are.
Different in feel and how you perceive a sweet spot and stability. But give it your best.
I say the Honolulu paddles, the J2K and J2Ti Plus had the best sweet spot to me. Just, I think that shape, and then they added foam to it. Everything felt really nice with that one. Again, I mained the J2K for a month, a few months ago, so I do have some familiarity with it. Yeah. So the sweet spot on that felt even better than the base J2K and J2Ti. Next, I'd say the TruFoam.
Yeah.
I think we can't really get into specifics about like weight and whatnot, but I think they're more solid out of the box than some of the other paddles, and maybe don't need the weight that other paddles do to get that increased stability and good sweet spot. And so those were kind of the clear number 2, have a really nice and forgiving sweet spot, especially on the 2. I didn't play with the 2 a lot, but that one did feel very wide. And even on the 1, it's not quite as big as the 2, but still really nice, really forgiving. You don't, for better or worse, you don't get a ton of feedback when you hit off center on those shots. And then between the Ripple and the 11SIX24s, I'm going to have to give number 3 to the Ripple. Again, I might be biased and swayed because I have so much experience with it, but it also feels really good. Really good sweet spot. I did have a good bit of lead at all times on my Ripple. So that could have, be painting my opinion on that as well.
Yeah, but when we tested mine too, they didn't have any weight that day.
That's true.
That was stock.
And it's a low swing weight paddle. Oh, not swing weight, twist weight paddle.
Yeah.
Out of the box with no lead. So to be that kind of stable and have that big of a perceived sweet spot with that low of a twist weight is, kind of surprising. Yeah. And then, God, see, now I regret putting the Vapor and the Huarache last, because the Vapor is also super stable and has a very big sweet spot. Maybe, okay, I'm going to change and go Vapor and the Huarache X and the Pegasus. The whole line has a bigger sweet spot than the Ripple to me. So I'm going to put these number 3 and put the Ripple number 4. Okay. So I'm going to go J2 line, TruFoam line as number 2, 11SIX as number 3, Ripple as number 4, with the caveat that I think they all have really nice sweet spots.
Clearly, I put Brent on the spot here, and that's on purpose. That's on purpose. So, and you can see by the way he has to think about it, that some of these are really close, and it's probably worth mentioning, like you said, that just because there's a number 1 and a number 4 in these ratings doesn't mean that any given number 1 is good even, but that also doesn't mean that any given number 4 is bad. That was interesting because that's really important to note because even if Brent's numbers are very different than mine, most of them are really good, I think. So I think I felt like I put the most time on the TruFoam 2 of all the TruFoams, and then followed by the Genesis 2. I think the TruFoam 2 has the best sweet spot. I then thought the Ronbus Ripple had the best sweet spot. And if you've hit the beta, the difference between that and this, so it's more robust. It has a higher twist weight, swing weight, gross weight. They've extended that core, so it will be better than what you experienced with the beta if you've hit a beta Ripple. Third, I thought the Honolulu paddles, and then fourth, the 11SIX24 power paddles. I thought that particularly the 𝒊𝒏𝒌𝒔, the elongated shape, needed weight.
It did.
Like I didn't want to play with it without weight, and that's the difference. Like I could play stock as far as sweet spot size is concerned with any of those top 3 paddles, but I think that the 𝒊𝒏𝒌𝒔 needs lead for sweet spot and stability. And then the Vapor is also is getting there. Like I actually played mostly with it stock, but I could put on some lead tape, and then I didn't think the Pegasus needed it for sweet spot, but I think it needed some weight for power. Those were my rankings there.
Yeah, I think the heavy use of foam, especially like the TruFoam being 100% and then the Ripple being a lot of foam, really adds to even more subjectivity and variability in what people feel with a paddle, you know? And I think we're going to see that when the reviews come out too, of things being, similar but not clear cut, this is a power paddle, or this is the best spin, or this is the best control. I think, that the introduction of, a lot of foam in the core construction is going to lead to a lot of variability.
Yeah. I think people should I've said this a few times now, but take what they usually assume from twist weight and put it into sweet spot size, and they should throw that out the window. Because it doesn't mean the same anymore.
Yeah, I'm starting to realize that. That just because something has a high twist weight, it might not feel like the sweet spot is the same size. It might feel smaller than something with a lower twist weight. Like you look at this, what is it, like a high 5s on the twist weight on a Ripple?
I forget. It's lower than you would expect.
Yeah.
And that's we were talking about that before, because I have shared with Brent my numbers, and he looked at the twist weights of the TruFoams, and he was like, "Oh, that twist weight is kind of scary." And I was like, "Well, like tell me if I'm wrong here, like after your experience." But the more foam that's added, because we'll digress for a second, because twist weight is literally the measurement of how much resistance a paddle has spinning around its vertical axis, right? And the higher the number, the more force it takes to twist it, and that literally is like how much force it's going to take in your hand to twist it, but also how much resistance it has typically to a ball pressing and turning the paddle itself. That's usually it is directly correlated with sweet spot size, but the degree to which it is and what numerical value it is changes per a lot of variables, but like generations of paddle construction, it varies quite a bit too. So that same twist weight number, like I think when people think of twist weights and they hear like a 7, that's a really good twist weight for a Gen 2 paddle. You can't take a twist weight of 7 for a Gen 1 and say it's going to be really good, like the Paddle Techs, which they're decent, but it's not going to be the same thing as a Gen 2 7. And likewise with a Gen 3 and particularly like a Gen 4 all form paddle, if you take a twist weight of 5.5, you're going to think that sweet spot is shit. But in my experience, that hasn't been the case. You have to kind of take it within the context of the construction type and what type of construction. Now that you've tested all these, do you feel like that statement is true?
Oh yeah. I used to, and still kind of do, put probably too much stock in twist weight. Before the introduction of a lot of these foam enhanced and full foam paddles, that's the metric that you had to go on, right? Like if I see a twist weight somewhere 6.25 to 7, I'm like, yeah, that should be a nice stable, high sweet, not high, but like large sweet spot paddle. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Now that the introduction of these foam enhanced and full foam paddles, I think that number matters less. I almost don't want to know what the twist weight is now going into feeling and playing with the paddle. I'd rather not know and not have that like color my review or color my perception of the sweet spot and stability on a paddle, because it doesn't quite line up as much as it used to with these paddles.
It doesn't, especially like if you think about the TruFoams, they're 14 millimeters. And
I honestly
keep forgetting that. They're not 16 millimeters. They're 14 millimeters. And they're at the very least, in conversation among people for the best sweet spot sizes that there is, as a 14 millimeter paddle, not 16. And with twist weights that are probably lower than many Gen 2 paddles. So something to keep in mind as people look at the numerical values of these paddles for sure.
Yeah.
Let's do one more thing. Just let's give an overall kind of maybe recommendation for like, maybe you should have this paddle of this kind of thing. And then we'll give some thoughts on a couple other paddles we have, and then we'll call it a day.
Sure.
So here's my thoughts. If you are budget constrained, if you're a person who like really values your, cost and how much you want to put towards a paddle, and you can't afford, $250 plus, which I'm not sure if I could, if I wasn't sent these, right?
Yeah.
The Honolulu paddles and the 11SIX24 paddles are both right around like $150-ish, something, $160 after discount codes. Those are your budget options. The J2K Plus and J2Ti Plus are a little more plush feeling, a little better with control, very pleasant feeling. The 11SIX24s are more crisp, a little bit higher power and pop. And those are kind of the differences of our two budget paddles. So if you want a high value per dollar and you want to get into these exciting paddles, that's probably my recommendations there. Both of these, the Ripples and the TruFoams, are, so the Ripples like $240 after codes. The TruFoams are going to be $250-ish after codes, if I'm remembering right. The Ripple is it for pop and power. Like, there is nothing going to hit as hard or be as poppy as it. And if you want to be up there with those, and you want to counter with mashes and smashes and whatever, that's the Ripple. But it does have a question mark right now on durability. So there's that. The TruFoams, very, very unique feel. Very low on vibrations. So is the Ripple, but ginormous sweet spots, much better with control. And in the plenty of hours that I put on these, they have just like not changed. Which is so nice. So even though they're more dollars up front than these other two paddles, unless I'm proven wrong, which we'll see, I do predict that they're going to last a long time. And it would make me really happy to see a lot of them at the court because one, I think it's a good investment for people, and I don't think people are going to have to buy new paddles in 2 months. But also I know that I'm not going to be playing against a broken mod type paddle on the other side of me. So as both of I'm happy for the consumer and I'm happy for myself. I would like to see more of these on the court. Tell me if you have any other thoughts on and that kind of a line for these paddles.
Yeah, no, I think you did a really great summary there, and I pretty much agree 100% with that. These are your quote-unquote budget Gen 3s right here that are both really good paddles. More control, a little softer on the J2K Plus and the Ti Plus. 11SIX24 Power Series, a little more crisp, a little more pop and power than the J2K series. So it's kind of, if you're going to take these budget ones, which one kind of fits your style better? Do you like a more crisp, more feedback type paddle with a little more power and pop? Or are you liking more of a softer, plusher, bordering all court power type paddle? It's kind of up to you. And then, like Dustin said, the Ripple is right now king of the power and pop as far as legal non-broken mod paddles. If that's your play style, if you're very aggressive, if you can handle and control that power and pop, it's an amazing paddle. Moral dilemmas aside on like, should pickleball be going that way? Put that aside. It's an amazing paddle for what it does and what it can do. It
stands apart.
It does. And then the TruFoam is just it's all around. It's a very wide sweet spot. It's got good power, not a ton of pop, and so I think it'll appeal more to maybe the people that struggle with control a little bit, and they want,
Me.
And I honestly think the TruFoam 2 shape, to me it doesn't look as wide as other like standard wide body paddles. I don't know if that plays out in the measurements or not, though. But I think the TruFoam 2 could be a nice shape for people that enjoy hybrids and standard shape paddles, because I feel like it really kind of straddles that line, mainly just on the looks, and the way it plays. It feels more hybrid-esque than a standard, to me at least, as far as like leverage and feel that I get from that.
You're not wrong. You know what's a big pain in the ass is if I play with all these on the same day and I don't show it right in front of the camera which paddle I'm playing with, these look the exact same. All three of these models from a distance. It's so hard to tell which one I'm playing with. So then when I go back and edit on film, I'm like, what paddle is this? So I've done my best to sort that out for the review video, but gosh, I learned that lesson quick. So to show this in front of the camera, because it doesn't have like an obvious wide body shape to it. And the handle has plenty of room for two hands, but but at least for me, if you don't mind, I'm okay with like putting a little finger up with my second hand, but and Carbon has the 30-day return policy, so you can try it and send it on back,
which is really nice. If you're gonna put that amount of money towards a paddle, it is nice to have a 30-day return policy.
Yep. So I'll have reviews on all these, probably the Honolulus as well. They kind of snuck up on me with their release, so I don't. I'm hoping so. We'll see what I have time for. But for sure these, and I'll cut them all open for the reviews and whatnot. But we have one more set of paddles to talk about. We've got both of the Bash Pickleball paddles. Cody and I showed these. It's like more of a first look last time. But we have the Lucky. Both of these, and the Lucky and the Scorcher. Both of these are, elongated, edgeless paddles, right? They have the same overall dimensions. Kind of that shorter, I believe, 5.3-inch handle. Not crazy short, but on the shorter end. The Lucky I have to read this because it's interesting. The Lucky is the triple blended carbon fiber face. It's got 12 gauge, 3K, and T700 all layered and kind of woven together. And I'm not even going to get into all that, but it's interesting nonetheless. And then the Scorcher is just the 3K.
The graphics on this is just, know.
Brent's a fan of the graphics, and I am too. Actually, like I am a fan of companies and paddles that do something different. So at least the skull and the flames and whatever. I got
some looks and some like, oh, that's a cool paddle yesterday when I broke it out at the indoor courts.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because Brent said the Scorcher. He was like, oh, have you not played with this one yet? Because it doesn't look like it's been played with. And this was the one that Cody and I were speculating had spray on grid on it, but it doesn't look any different. And I've played full games with it, and as have Brent, but they said there is an additive on it, and it's a graphene additive. I don't know. I'll have to look in exactly the difference in that and spray on grid, to be honest. So I'm sure I knew at one point, but I forget. And then the other one just kind of looks like a normal paddle as far as use. In terms of playability, maybe I'll go first on this one. So the Lucky, I thought, played a little bit softer than the Scorcher. Both of these, I think you put it well when we were talking before. You said that you looked at their price, and they are very friendly prices. They're right around $100. One's a little cheaper than the other one. And then you can stack 10% off codes on top of that. And that's probably about how they played. And I think that's accurate. Not good, not bad, just kind of, they weren't very poppy. I think, they were just kind of like normal. I think people have an idea that edgeless paddles have horrible sweet spots, and I think these were maybe low end of average, so they weren't horrible, but they weren't great. They were just kind of mid.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was surprised about, honestly, because I usually am not a fan of edgeless paddles because of that just what feels like a lower stability and a smaller sweet spot. So I was a little surprised that these had a more pleasant sweet spot and stability than what I was expecting. I was
Yeah.
expecting them to be very harsh, lots of feedback, and just a tiny little sweet spot. But was surprised that it was better than I expected in that regard. Is it, any of these type sweet spots and stability? No, it's not. But it's also not at the price level as any of these either.
Yeah. Yeah, there's kind of like we were talking about this before as well. There's kind of two frames of mind to think of. It's like, well, is it worth $100? Like, would I be okay with saying like, yeah, it's not bad for $100? Then sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But if I were to take my top, $100 paddles and say like, is this up there with them? I'd say probably not. I think it's a fine paddle, and people are going to probably, if they use it, it's going to be like, I don't know, no surprises really. But we've got, the Super Court and the Jelly Bean and the J2 and other upcoming ones that are coming out as well. Even the where'd that one go? The Pickleball. There's a lot of paddles that are right there at that price point that I think do stand out in other ways, whereas these don't really stand out in any kind of a way that I can't put it in the same circle as them, but they're fine.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I was, hitting the TruFoam and the J2K Plus yesterday, and then switched to these, and yeah, you can tell they don't have any foam in them. They're just kind of your general Gen 2 thermo edgeless paddle. Yeah. I think with a little weight, they would feel even better. But yeah, I'd say average at their price point. You could do worse at their price point, but you could also do better with the paddles that you mentioned as well.
You could. I think what excites me about that brand is not the paddles necessarily, but it's the bag. I showed it last week with Cody, and I think I've got it.
Oh, that's slick.
Yeah, I'll show it just to show it, because Brent and I, we're going to do a bag review episode, and we're a little tight on time today, so maybe we'll do it next time. But their bag is pretty cool. It's pretty unique. That's what I like about their company, not necessarily their paddles. So
the graphics are pretty cool too.
Yeah, the graphics are cool. So if you like the
fun skull graphics,
yeah, sure. That's about what we got for today. We've also got the Pickleball. Ooh, I've had these for a while. I just haven't covered them yet. But the Pickleball effect, Braden has he's got strips, the tungsten tape strips, as well as what he had before with the rolls of tape. So Brent and I are gonna try these. I'm sure they're gonna be the same as other, strips and whatnot. But it is important to test them and see if they stick, because I've had some that just really don't stick.
I've had some cheap ones from Amazon that are not tungsten but lead, and the adhesive is pretty terrible on them.
Yeah, I do like the sentiment of why he's doing this, at least conceptually. So talking to him, it's about 5 times more expensive to make the tungsten material as opposed to lead. So that's why most people make lead, even though it's known to be as a material more toxic. But that's why they're higher in price. And you can there's probably a lot of discount codes out there for him. I'll set one up with our channel. You probably use his own code for him on his website, but I'll link that below as well. And then we also have the flick weights, which I haven't used yet, but those are, as opposed to the slice caps, you can just stick those on the butt with the sticker. So we'll try those out, and we'll report next time.
Yeah, I haven't used any of the butt cap weights or the handle weights like the slice or the flick before, but if I was going to try one, the flick interests me the most because it's less of a commitment. You don't have to go into the paddle and take out stuff and install it and whatnot. It's just an easy, like, I'm going to put this on the end, and if I don't like it, I'm just going to take it off. Yeah, I'm really interested. I don't have a ton of experience with that either, probably because I like head heavier paddles, so I don't really care to unhead heavy it. But we'll try those and we'll report back. So thanks for watching what is probably the 7th episode. I can't remember, but thanks, Brent, for being here. Let us know if you guys have anything you want us to cover, or any questions or comments, or anything you guys want to roast Brent about, and feel free to do so in the comments. And we'll see you guys next time. Sounds good. Thanks for having me. See you guys later.